Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Blue Collar Workers. We had our special last week that I've not really done a great deal of work towards because I was on holiday in the Orkneys. As always, I'm John, Sean, or Yacha, depends on who you're asking.
I'm Chris.
And this is the Blue Collar Workers, your voice, your nation. Today we've got a collection of commentary that I will be doing, that we'll be running through, that we wanted to answer. There are some racist remarks that I've just completely ignored, and I intend to ignore the less unintelligent racist remarks, but if you can at least articulate yourself in some measure of intelligence, I will happily to try to answer your questions. I've also got school care homes and sport clubs sold off to pay spiralling council debts. I've also got Reform UK would pay countries for migrants return deals, and domestic abuse screening tools don't work, ministers have said. Over on Chris's side,
I've got Labour could lose the next election due to immigration issues. Reeves' failed economic plan. Bank of England governor concerns over workforce challenge that's arising. Is earning over 100k now a losing game? And BBC looking at changing the TV licence. And yet again, food prices go up.
Yeah, I think that kind of sums up a great deal of the fucking shit-stained mess we are in from our exit from the EU. But comments first, because I've been trying to get a list of semi-decent comments that I wanted to get together, and me and Chris were going to talk about them. And over our most recent video, which involves why Muslims should vote, please find that in the links of this video itself. Amos Daesh asked us, first comment, how did China go from a third world country to a financial global powerhouse? Hint, it wasn't taxes. The country needed to focus on growth to increase tax collections and also reduce wealth sent abroad. Money earned in the UK needs to stay in the UK. Those are some brilliant points, but the United Kingdom is not a developing country. One of the fundamental problems that you've missed, Amadeus, is that China is coming from whole sections of it, huge sections of inland China, from what is a 19th century village lifestyle to city lifestyle. She also has nearly 1 billion people. We have 70 million. There is a level of industrialization that's coming into that we just don't have. Secondly, we haven't had any real infrastructural projects done here in the UK since the 1950s. There has been no real build project to lift Britain out of it. Remember, we still live on only 8% of the land here in the UK. There has been no massive development when it comes towards our economical growth as per se. No government as of yet has ploughed the efforts necessary to develop the UK industrially. We haven't had an industrial development since probably 70, 75 years. So the argument to compare us to China is entirely oranges to grapefruit. It really is like entirely different fucking worlds. They have 1 billion population. We have 70 million. We don't even make 1/10 of the Chinese population. China's moving from 19th century villages, and they've done this really successfully. I've got nothing but incredible respect for what the Chinese have done. They've moved their village-based economy into city-based economy, and they're doing fantastically about it. China's one of the most advanced, fast-growing countries in the world. To compare us to them is a misconception because of the fact that we don't have its population, we haven't done any of its infrastructure, and we don't have a vast labour pool to rely on. Your opinion, your thoughts on that one, Chris?
Literally just reinforcing, it's two different types of backgrounds completely. And for one, we probably fit in our entire country probably fits into a small section of China. We're probably classed as a province within China. So that should,
they probably do have provinces that are only 70 million, but those would be the small provinces.
Yeah, see, that should give you a more better example of size. The fact that the entire UK would fit into a small corner of China, it would be classed as a province. Yeah. So
when you're talking about industrial,
plus it's two different types of lifestyles.
Yeah.
So the fact, obviously, and their infrastructure, I'm sorry, is far better than ours.
Yeah, of course.
But they've took years to develop that.
They've been developing it since the 80s. If Britain had been slowly developing, even small scales, our infrastructure from the 80s, we wouldn't be living the life we're living right now. Another question that you asked about, another flaw to your thinking, is how does an £800 million profit company go to the size to generate your 80% tax if profits aren't reinvested in growth? Let me be very, very clear. I have never supported an 80% tax bracket. Nor is Chris. Neither of us ever want any company to pay 80% tax. What we're talking about is almost all companies that have the theoretical 80% bracket have a form of handoff that pays them a hell of a lot less tax than they do.
They got loopholes to reduce that
Every
tax.
single company in the United Kingdom has a loophole, has a get out, has some form of tax, not unlawful, but a tax evasion of some sort.
Something that's actually written within the tax code.
Codes itself.
Yeah.
And this is why there are such large companies of accounting companies. Is a massive booming business here in the UK, which is dying because of AI. We've never suggested 80% generated profits, but that 80% generated profits would still give them hundreds of millions to invest that they haven't. Almost all the water electric companies pay dividends before they look at investment. And the crumbling infrastructure we have here in both the electrics, water and rail system here in the UK is because of decades of negligence.
That's wrong. It should be a case of you need to reinvest, sort out your own issues, and then whatever's left you then pay the shareholders.
Exactly. But it's arse about face here in the UK. Shareholders get their cut before anyone else.
Oh.
And that's where we, the British public, should be the shareholders of our electrics, our industries, so that the money isn't being paid to private investors.
I don't know if this is a British side of me or whatever, but if I was a shareholder investor, I'd be going, no, reinvest that money and then give me what's left over. So I can then turn and go, I'm a proud shareholder of this company and they're doing fantastic. Not, I'm a shareholder of this company, I'm mega rich, but the entire thing is a pile of shit.
Yeah. Renationalising the electric, water and rail system is a no-brainer. This isn't some far
That would
leftist
mean
idea.
fair wages for the people if they'd done that.
This is not a far leftist idea that they have not invested in the infrastructure. And we built most of that infrastructure, Amadeus. Some flaws of your thinking, if we go government-owned, you say that the bills would only cover costs and therefore no profits to reinvest. Of course there's profits to reinvest. We cover the bills, and a 60k job for the executor of that company is a very well paid job.
Bear in mind, if you actually look at how much money they are making, based on how much we currently pay,
as our water and electric bills are monstrous right now here in the UK.
For what we pay, if you look at the profits they're making, that's the profits after they've covered expenditures. Which means if the government was to take over and then just turn and go, right, we're freezing it at this price and ain't moving, that means those profits would then be able to go into reinvesting.
Modernising. You wouldn't be paying the investors.
And the amount you would actually have available, which means you can actually probably hire more people to actually better run the system. You need to think of it two ways. You're saying, obviously, where would the money come from? It'll come from us paying for the service.
You also mentioned, as a counterexample, the post office was privatised in 2013. A fucking disaster of a decision, I might add. Look how much their use of technology and efficiency has gone up. You mean after the scandals, after the layoffs, after the closure of like 60% of the post offices, after the absolute disasters, are you just cherry-picking your material here, Amadeus? Now, I get that you're saying that the capitalist world has a point, but these are public-owned infrastructures. I'm not talking about private industries. I'm not talking about what private capital has built in private industries. We're not talking about privatising stuff that someone else has paid for, built from the ground up, as things like McDonald's, things like Burger King, things like W.H. Smith's. These are all privately equitable companies. The problem is the electric, the post office, the fucking rail systems, their base infrastructure has not been massively increased since we sold them. So what is the British public getting out of these? Efficiency? How the fuck is this more efficient? My water bills are more expensive than they have been in 20 years. My electric bills are more expensive than they have been in 20 fucking years. And this is because of dividend shareholders. But I appreciate the commentary. I appreciate the time that you've taken. But I unfortunately completely disagree with you when it comes towards the premisical position of the post office. The post office was a terrible example of privatising. In fact, almost all the British privatisations of state-funded assets has been a fucking disaster.
I remember when you used to be able to send a letter off in the post office 2-3 days later, the other person got it. It's now over a week, I swear.
Yeah, it's the mailing system here in the UK is shot to hell. And this has not improved the system. None of these privatisations, when you take
Amazon deliver a better postal service than
that's what I'm saying.
The post office does.
Because the post office system was a nationwide system that has been co-opted by private interests who want their dividends.
Greedy people wanting more money.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm going to answer a question for Stephen Parker, who says, please explain to me Tawhid, and then I shall explain why Islam can't exist in a Christian Western country. They are polar opposites. All Muslims have known this, and now non-Muslims are beginning to understand it. Sorry, but it's time to leave. Firstly, I have the freedom of right to choose my own religious belief. And Stefan, with respect, you can kiss my ass, okay? I will believe what I want to believe. I don't impose it on anyone else. I mind my own business. I pray my 5 daily prayers. I go about my business, and I leave the rest of my island relatively alone. But since you've specifically asked about an Islamic question involving Tawhid. Tawhid is an Islamic concept, I'm probably badly pronouncing that, primarily from the Shia Islam, meaning prudence or caution, and referring to the practice of concealing one's religious beliefs and duties when facing prosecution. You see, this is a Shia, it's not a Sunni. Sunni is the bulk of the British Muslims, like 99% of us. So this is a practice used by a minority of Muslims that the gentleman wishes to ask. When facing persecution or threat to life or potential injury to oneself or one's community, it is a form of self-protection and is not as intended as a general justification for lying or hypocrisy, but is permissible practice in specific extreme circumstances of dangers to one's faith or life. Purpose: to ensure the safety and survival of individuals or communities under threat of persecution. Context: it is applied when one open expresses of one's true belief could lead to the danger, death, or destruction of one's life or community. Very specific. In me defending my Shia cousins, who are not my belief, I'm a Sunni Muslim. The concept is largely associated with the Shia Islam due to historical persecution faced by that community through its scriptures authority debated and derived from the Quran. Distinction from hypocrisy. Whilst it involves concealing one's true belief, Tawhid is considered a religious ruling for self-preservation rather than endorsement of hypocrisy, lying, or misdirection. Sunni Muslims do not genuinely practice this, which represents 98% of British Muslims. So you see, much of your argument here, Stephen Parker, is completely nonsensical. It does not apply to 98% of the Muslim population. You're taking a Shia idea because the Shias have been persecuted, which I don't agree with persecuting the Shias in any way, shape, or form. I believe in debating them and proving them wrong via Tawhid, via conversation, via fiqh, via the conversations of dawah, which is what we do when we have conversations with our religious cousins. Because the Shias are our religious cousins, even though we consider them in error, we still consider them, like we do Christians, as our brothers and sisters, just off of faith, relatively speaking. Stefan, you have taken a tiny portion, you have misquoted, and you have twisted the words to serve your own benefit. It doesn't even represent 98% of the Muslim population of Britain. It doesn't. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is for the Shias, which represent 2% of British Islam. So and the Muslim community being still tiny comparative to the rest of the UK. So I hope that kind of alleviates your skullduggery in that regard.
I'm more interested into why he thinks that we can't live in harmony, in cohabitation.
And we're not even a Christian Western country anymore. I wish it was Christian, respectfully, Stefan. I really do wish it was Christian. Because if it was Christian morals, we would be missing so many of these problems we Muslims have with ultra-liberal, transgendered identity crisis that is going on in the UK right now that is being backblowed from America, which realistically we don't need. Moving on, Kevin Grant. I apologise, Kevin. Your comments were very old, only 3 months old. We haven't had a chance to get to them because we didn't want to just do 1 or 2 questions. You two are a breath of fresh air. That's a nice comment. I watched all the videos listening to your both, was likely hearing hearing what I have been thinking and saying for years. You said that the UK can legally deport hundreds of thousands of failed asylum seekers back to France and Germany if they wanted to do so. I do not believe that for 1 minute. Right, so standard legal treaties have existed via the Dublin III up to 2021. Britain doesn't want to, the British political elite do not want to send the failed asylum seekers back because it wants the labour. We have a birth decline, a massive birth decline, Kevin Grant. Huge birth decline. We're at 1.37 or 1.39 when me and Chris last looked. And because of that, the British political elite, they want the migrants so that they can actually do the work so we can stay an industrial nation. Let's be quite frank, that's the reason why we can't. We had a treaty less than 4 years ago that would have allowed us to repatriate all of the illegal asylum seekers we've had prior to that. And I need to make that clear. We've now just built a new treaty with France. So for the last 5 years, we haven't had much of a treaty, because we left the Dublin Treaty because the Tories wanted to. I don't know if that was actually part of the EU grant or whether it wasn't, but because the Tories wanted to. Remember, we have 14 years of Tory leadership. So the standard legal capacity there, Kevin Grant, about migration is we could have deported hundreds of thousands of migrants that have come here before 2021 multiple times. The political elite of the UK did not want to. They needed the migrant workers because we are in a birth decline, because taxes are so fucking high, because the tax system needs to be reformed, and the burden of tax needs to be moved off me and you and the British public and back on towards the corporate world, which it was 100 years ago.
Which is where we started actually making growth.
Yeah, where we started making growth. So I wanted to make a point. We've had treaties, and only for the last 5 years, up until now, we've had the French treaty. We haven't had a treaty. And that's because the fucking Tories and Reform made us leave Europe. And that is where we had a breakdown in these treatable agreements.
Bear in mind, the new French treaty is still in its infancy. So
very much so.
There's still things they need to iron out and get right.
Absolutely, absolutely. Carrying on to your second point that you asked, and again, we apologise it's taken us months to get here because we wanted a collection of them. If a child tells their teacher that they are straight, do you think the school should inform their parents? If you don't think they should, why do you think that it should be informed the parents that they're gay or trans? Firstly, there's two parts to this conversation. The gay part, me and Chris don't care about. If someone's gay, they're gay. Cool, fantastic.
Whatever
sexuality bounces your boat. We don't care. That's about you. Trans has an entirely different subjugation, and I intend to.
The one thing I'm more concerned about is why does the teacher need to know?
That's another thing.
Because it's in my eyes, whatever the child's sexuality is, gay, straight, whatever,
is no one else's business but that child or adult.
I was going to say the only people that should be involved was the person that's questioning their sexuality and the parents involved. It should be
the parents are the legal guardian of this.
I was going to say it should be family members and family members only.
Absolutely, because it's a legal guardian, because it is a bedrock of the liberal democracy that we live in. But I wanted to mention involved. I had no issue with gay people, or gay people do not propose to transform permanently. What you've got to understand is transforming, the full end of trans actions, leads to permanent effects to one's body. Okay,
hence the reason why we've said in the past.
Mutilation of the body, in my opinion, because that's what's happening when you're cutting off breasts or cutting off manhoods. These are permanent actions. As such, children should not be making these decisions.
Yeah, hence the reason why we've said in the past, for you to do that, I'm sorry, it should be a case of
an adult decision. Absolutely.
You should be fully developed.
Absolutely, mentally fully developed.
Fully developed on physical and some degree mentally before you make that decision. So absolutely. I'm sorry, but scientists have already proven it. That is in your 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gay people do whatever they want. I've got never any problem. But body radically shifting their hormones and biochemistry. Yes, me and Chris believe that you should go. You should be going to radical shift your biochemistry as such a young and undeveloped mind. You need your parents' input, because this stuff can lead to permanent life-changing effects that you may regret in 10 to 15 years. And nobody talks about the detransitioning community. Nobody. Do you understand what I'm saying? We're not here to champion trans against or for in adult life. That's entirely an adult decision to be made. So we're very neutral in that regard. Once you're an adult, if you're making that decision, do you?
Yeah, because you've had the
mental faculties. You've concluded the arguments. You've made this decision as an adult.
I'm hoping you've done that research as an adult.
Of course, done that research as well.
To do everything that requires to do that. But anything underneath an adult, I'm sorry, but no.
In terms of involving this, remember, we don't allow children to smoke. We don't allow children to have children themselves. We don't allow children to have jobs or insurances, own property, go to war. They are children. They are either the ward of the state, or they are the wards of their parents. This is why permanent matters involving transitioning require the parents' input, because they are still wards of their parents or wards of the state. The state has a natural interest that these decisions that will be life-changing should not be reversible. This is why transitioning should only exist for adults. And I'm sorry, I stand on that.
For the adults that turn around and believe their child should be able to transition, you need to go get yourself checked out.
Absolutely, because they haven't developed their brains at that point. We're not talking about body dysphoria. Body dysphoria is an illness that should unquestionably be cured.
That's something that you need to go speak to the doctor about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's completely different to transforming your body. Body dysphoria is...
If you have body dysphoria,
is a mental
illness and it needs to be cured. We should not be facilitating an amusation of it. Let me be quite frank. Body dysphoria should be cured. And this needs to be mentioned. If you're frightened of your own body, there should be medication and aid and therapy that helps you live through this. Or at least to where you reach an adulthood that you can become transition. There should be no transitioning under the age of adulthood. Categorically. Your mind has not developed. You may regret it.
Your body hasn't developed.
Your body hasn't developed. These are problems that should be held into account. And this is why I fundamentally believe that this should be a legally adult conversation, not something that children should be engaged in. If you are homosexual, you are not physically changing your body.
Who on earth says that? What twisted mind thinks that?
That's what I'm saying. Being gay is not a problem. Me and Chris have got plenty of gay friends. We're not gay ourselves. I mean, I sometimes wonder about him and his peach shirts.
You fuck off.
You know, he might be a little on the camp side or comfortable wearing
as people say, metrosexual.
Metrosexual. But what I'm trying to get at, being gay is not a problem. No one on this podcast has a problem with people being gay. Alhamdulillah, do your thing. That doesn't bother you. These are permanent transitions when you're transforming. And that is why I believe it's an adult action, not a child action. We don't let children smoke, drink, drive cars, procreate, go to war. These are all adult things. And that's where I'm drawing the line.
Makes me think we should raise the age limit on certain things to over 20.
I would be careful about that conversation, but we'll leave that for another day. I'm just going to get to the last one of these conversations. Yeah. Dirk Borgia. I can't believe that anyone that classes themselves as working class would vote for either Labour or the Conservatives or the Liberals and Greens, which leaves you Reform. The answer is simple, Dirk. No one in their right mind should vote for Nigel Farage, the man who is a walking lying machine, who has never kept a promise over a word in his life. I can't stand the current PM, but I'd still trust him over where's my 350 million fucking Nigel Farage. Yeah? Battle bus. We'll get 350 million back a week. Where's our money? This man has never spoken the truth in his life, and nor do any of his MPs. They are all closet racists. Every fucking single one of them. Yes, politicians are untrustworthy in general. They are, aren't they? Most politicians are genuinely untrustworthy.
Gift of the gab.
Yeah, gift of the gab. The problem being is Nigel Farage is a prolific liar and has never, ever successfully stood by any kind of group that he has apparently advocated for. He advocated for boats, he advocated for fishermen, he's advocated for the poor, he's advocated for anybody who gets in fucking power.
I would say just the proof of the pudding is just look at the party he's been involved in, look at the promises he's made, and then see if he's actually held that promise.
He's never kept a damn fucking promise yet. And that's the fundamental why I could ever not even look at reform. Yeah, maybe you have an argument on the Conservatives and Labour. The Green and Liberal Democrats have almost never been in power. That's unfair. That's genuinely unfair to the Green and Liberals.
It's just been Labour and Conservatives for
most of our life.
For quite a time.
We had a moment where Nick Clegg had an opportunity to hold the Conservatives accountable, and the Liberal Democrat Conservative government was actually probably one of the fairest governments we've had when you take into account all the disasters we've got up to and including Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer is still a better Prime Minister than Nigel Farage would ever be. With all the mistakes, and you know I'm a fucking critic of Keir Starmer, he is still a better Prime Minister than Nigel Farage would ever be. A personal acquaintance of mine and Chris, Count Dadlius, Keir's ideology is a neoliberal globalist sprinkled with progressive intersections. He himself is a robot who gets his programming updates from Tony Blair. This is probably very true, Count Dadlius. And I'm happy to be a mutual with this ever-lovable gentleman, because I genuinely think that he is a highly intelligent critique of the modern political system, who me and Chris would love to have on our podcast. We've invited him. It's been a timetable thing. But personally, I think that Keir Starmer gets a great deal of grievances unnecessarily when British neoliberalism, because it's a strong point for me and Chris, as always, my dear friend Count Douglas, comes on down to Gloucester sometime, and we do a meet and session with you. But interests, Keir Starmer is very close to Tony Blair, and that's not necessarily a bad thing in modern British politics today, Count Douglas. And I know you're going to be quite disgusted at that, but when you're given the fact that you've got right-wing nutcases like the current leader of the Tory party, dog whistling to even more racist motherfuckers like the man who says deport everybody who is a migrant and get rid of all brown people, because that's what Nigel Farage is saying, but without saying the brown people part. Do you know what I'm saying? He's saying deport all the brown people without saying the brown people part.
In simplest terms, better the devil you know.
Absolutely. I'm not saying Keir Starmer is a good man or even a good prime minister, but he is the lesser evil that we currently have.
Because of the background he comes from and has associations with Tony Blair, we can roughly guess what we're going to get. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's not great. It's not perfect, but it is at least tolerable comparative towards what we've got currently with the Conservative government.
Dread to think what would happen if they come in.
Kerry Bennock is not a good leader. Nigel Farage is a prolific liar. Prolific liar.
I have a feeling Farage will sink us into the black hole of death even further.
The man is useless. He's only wanted to be there to be the Prime Minister. He sees it as a glorified job and doesn't want to actually do the hard work. He will be an absolute fucking disaster to this country.
He sees it as a title.
Last person involving the commentations, Goofy Gomez. The issue is lawful migration. That do not share the cultural sentiments of the UK. Look at what happened in Scandinavia, an utter social political nightmare. Scandinavia has a tenth of the UK's population. Okay? Scandinavia has a tenth of the UK's population and has been forced to take on a lot of migrants that Germany and France don't want. There's a lot of interpolitical reasoning why Scandinavia has received 10 times the level based upon their population of migrants than we, the British, have, or Europeans do in general. I don't think the UK has a constructive talk about lawful migration enough. We're not talking about the boats. We're talking about the massive immigration because of the lack of birth rate here in the UK. And me and Chris have spoken about this before. Without birth rate, the UK needs to accept that there will be lawful migration, because you will stop being an industrial nation if you don't. Do you understand what I'm saying? Roads will collapse. Housing will collapse. Care homes will collapse.
That's
medical will collapse.
That's where I'll turn around and take a page out of Australia's book and bring in people that fit our needs.
Absolutely, there is an argument, but the Australian system also has a problem with several problems with it.
Yeah, but I said the leaf. I didn't say any system's perfect, but it's a guide. Because of the fact, at the end of the day,
the UK immigration, we have to have immigration. We have a collapsing birth rate. Goofy Gomez, and integrating these people is a challenge. We are not sitting here denying that challenge.
This is rather controversial, but name a time where there is no migration in the UK.
Migration, this is a migrant nation.
Yeah, name a time where there is no migration in the UK. That's what I pose to you guys.
French migration, Polish migration, we go back to the 19th century. We had the Caribbean migrations. You go back to the 17th century. You have French and German migrations. You go back to the 15th century. You have Spanish and Portuguese migrations. You go back even further, 1066. We have a massive fucking war that changes us entirely. Go back further than that. It comes to the Viking times, Viking migration. Britain is a migrant nation. The Anglo-Saxons are feeling the change of wind moving into this direction. You are a migrant society. You need to accept that you're a migrant society. Britain never had, realistically, an indigenous population, except my ancestors, who are long, long gone. You know,
and that's an Irish background.
No. I'm not even talking about the Irish. Aren't pure Irish these days.
No.
Do you know what I'm saying? We're talking about the original Celts, and even they migrated from France in around about minus 2000, minus 3000, because the Picts would have been the children of the Neolithic Britons that came out of the Orkneys. I've only just come back from the Orkneys. Beautiful, beautiful Neolithic history. If you want to know about migration, go up there and realize that there was migration going on and trade going on in the Neolithic age. Neolithic communities were trading, migrating, and integrating with each other 5000 BC. If Britain was doing that in 5000 BC, before any of these things like countries, flags, or nations, then why the hell do you think that's going to change now? That wraps up our conversations involving the various talking points. I think we're going to move over now to Chris's first actual political point.
Warning to Stammer from his own MPs, migration could cost you the next election. Keir Starmer has been warned by his own MPs and party graddies that Labour risks losing the next election unless he does more to tackle illegal migration. Illegal migration. Not lawful, illegal. The Prime Minister was urged by his own side to take more radical action, including suspending human rights protections and copying Denmark's hardline zero refugee approach amid growing public concern over his government's handling of this crisis. As he travels to Europe for a holiday with his family, a YouGroup poll found that 71% of voters, including 56%...
That's a YouGov group from The Telegraph.
Yeah.
That's from a poll of The Telegraph. I want to make very clear about that.
Found that 71% of the voters, including 56% of the Labour supporters...
Who read The Telegraph.
Yeah. Believe he is dealing with the issue...
poorly. You know, he is.
Would help if the thing didn't keep loading shit. Dealing with the issue of asylum hotels badly.
Oh, yeah.
Almost 4 in 10, 37% said immigration and asylum is a most important issue facing the country, but fewer than 1 in 10, 9% said Labour was the best party to tackle it. Even 60% of those who voted Circular Party at last election thought reform would do a better job at securing the borders. Oh, that's a statement and a half.
But again, this is from Telegraph polled people.
Yeah. It comes after a record 111,8400 asylum claims were logged in Labour's first year in power, despite the Prime Minister's vow to smash the gangs. Official figures also revealed last week that the number of asylum seekers being housed in hotels across the country has risen by 8% in the past year, while councils across the country are now trying to end the practice in the wake of the landmark court case.
Now, again, not all of these hotels are hotels. Let's be very, very clear about this. A lot of them are called hotels to hide the fact that they're practically board stores. Me and Chris have spoken about this before. So an 8% increase in actual hotel use is a bit of an alarm, because those are proper hotels that we're talking about now. Do not get sucked into that vision, Britain, that this is a massive increase in normal hotel use. It's not, okay? We're now starting to use normal hotels, and that is something to be alarmed about. It is not something to overreact about. Many of the protesters, especially those in Epping, in my opinion, have a racist motive. There is an unquestionable racist motive here in the UK that is going on right now. Nigel Farage is dog whistling the racists, and they are becoming a loud minority, and the police should clamp down on them severely. Yes, there is a concern, and it is a legitimate concern. I'm not talking about the legitimate protesters. This is not me having an objection to the legitimate protesters. This is the dog whistling nationalists who want everybody who isn't white off the island. That is something we need to avoid.
Ministers have so far focused on introducing counter-terror powers to take on people smugglers, as well as increasing migrant returns, including through a new one-in, one-out deal with France. But former Home Secretary Lord Blunkett,
he's a moron, ignore him.
Called on the government to go further by temporarily suspending the European Convention on Human Rights and introducing a digital ID card system.
Lord Blunkett is a moron. He's a Blairite moron. The man had, he was probably the most incompetent foreign secretary? Or was he an ex-what? I remember
Former Home Secretary.
I remember Lord Blunkett being covered in fucking problems during his time when he was in Tony Blair's government.
He told the Times, which carried out polling, the issue is so toxic and beginning to get out of the government's grip to the point it is very hard to bring it back. A further package of actions is absolutely vital to start controlling both the public narrative and the delivery. Labour MP Joe White told BBC Radio 4's Today's programme, I firmly believe that if we don't sort it, then Labour are under the threat at the next general election. So I want the government to look at at every solution possible.
Absolutely. No, again, and that's not a problem. Again, the Labour government needs to, because the Labour government will do it in a humane manner.
I love the way, obviously, we've made the deal with France 1 in, 1 out. It's still in its infancy because it's not long been put into place. Yeah,
literally August, just gone.
Yeah, I was gonna say you haven't even freaking given it a month yet.
Of course,
it isn't even the end of August yet.
No, I know.
Yeah, you gotta give things time, especially on something this scale. It takes time to put everything into practice, solidify everything into proper routine and everything else. You're just literally trying to stir-monger, which is ridiculous. All I'm going to say is to you guys, let's see where the current deal goes with the 1 in, 1 out. Then if it needs amending, then amend it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I genuinely find that much of the migrational problems that we have here in the UK are based upon, 1, ignorance, 2, right-wing press, and the Telegraph is right-wing, wanting to stir up fears, and 3, general nasty fucking racists. Britain, you cannot build a country.
That wasn't even the Telegraph.
No, the poll came from the Telegraph.
Yeah.
The poll came from the Telegraph.
I said the article's Daily Mail.
Yeah. The Daily Mail is also right-wing, but the article from the Telegraph is very clearly written from a right-wing perspective, and we need to neutrally look at that, Britain. Do not be dog-whistled into this right-wing echo chamber, okay? Without migration, Britain, you will collapse. I say this loud and fucking clear. Your systems and government will collapse without migration. You will lack the infrastructure to build a country because you are not having enough children because of the tax problems that you have.
But that's on that one. Shall we do Reeves straight after?
No. Yeah. Let's get on to the Reform UK would pay countries for migrants. We just did that one. Reform UK has said it would offer payments to countries like Afghanistan to enable mass deportation of migrants who arrive in the UK on small boats. Nigel Farage, there are not enough Afghanistanians arriving via small boats for you to make that viable. Point 1, okay? There are not a vast amount. The most of the people coming by small boats, if you've looked at the recent statistics, are the Vietnamese. They are arriving over there. They're other ethnicities. They're not the Afghanistanians. So you can see the man is dog whistling, involving something that's happened just recently because of Afghanistan's people being repatriated to us because of the collapse of the Afghan government and the return of the Taliban. The man is using that as a headline gasp. The problem being is the small boat people coming across are not from Afghanistan. They're not. The party leader, Nigel Farage, set out a 5-year plan to detain and deport all migrants who arrive in the UK without permission. Where do they get permission from, Nigel? We don't, and other than this French treaty, we don't have an asylum migration system any part of the UK outside the UK at the moment. At a news conference in Oxford, under the plan named Operation Restore Justice, please fucking save me. Reform UK would bar anyone who comes to the UK on small boats from claiming asylum and strike deals with countries to return those people. The problem being is what Nigel Farage is not getting at is many of these countries don't even have diplomatic relations with the UK. Vietnam, Cambodia, these are the places where these people are coming from. Under this plan named Reform UK said it would make $2 billion available to put towards return deals if it won power, with aid offered as an incentive and sanctions potentially imposed on countries that do not cooperate. Launching his plan, Farage described illegal migration as a scourge on the UK. Illegal migration is a tip of the actual lawful migration that we need here in the UK, and right-wing press are dog whistling it. Absolutely dog whistling. There is a legal migration black hole that the British people need to have a conversation about, and it is based around the fact we don't have tax, we don't have a birth rate, and we need migration until we fix these other problems. Nigel Farage is dog whistling the illegal boat problem, and he's not even dog whistling it correctly. They're not Afghanistanians that are crossing the fucking goddamn water, and this is a point I need to stress. Under the plan, people would be arrested on arrival, detained, and at disused RAF bases, and if agreements were reached, returned to their countries of origin, including Afghanistan and Eritrea, where a significant number of people in the small boats come from. Nigel Farage, you're a lying bastard! You're a lying bastard! The Eritreans and Afghanistanians are already here, you cunt! And have been here for years now! You're a lying cunt! The most recent fucking panorama statement says they're Vietnamese, Cambodians. But you don't find that they're not brown people. You can't attack brown people for that, you lying cunt. Said it would aim to scale up deportation chartered flights to 5 per day. Key to the plan is the passage of a new law called the Illegal Migration Mass Deportation Bill. Reform UK said the bill would create a legal duty for the Home Secretary to remove illegal migrants and ban anyone who has been deported from re-entering the UK for life. Monstrous. If you're coming over here to avoid persecution, you have a lawful right by international law to seek asylum. They can't seek it in France or in Germany. They can't seek it in Italy or Spain, where we can decide whether they can have the lawful migration. Remember, the Tories closed all these centres. Cunts. So the reform said the plan would cost about $10 billion over a 5-year, but would save the government money it spends on asylum hotels and other costs over the long term. The proposal could face legal challenges and political opposition, with Labour branding it unworkable and the Conservatives accusing Reform UK of recycling their ideas. The Conservatives and the Reform are almost bedfellows when it comes to these type of ideas. They are dog whistling. They will never legally pass the checks. They will never pass the law. What's your opinion on this?
It's stupid.
It's insane.
Trying to gain public favour on an issue which can be easily solved. We're speaking with other countries.
Yeah, you can do most of these problems by building asylum centres in Italy, in Greece, in Spain, in Portugal. You don't know, or consulates they call them. Yeah, consulates. Yeah. You could solve half these fucking problems if you actually built systems that allow people to claim asylum outside of the UK. They were all closed, Britain. Nearly 28,000 migrants have crossed the English channels on small boats since the start of this year, and a record 111,000 asylum seekers were made in the year to June. That's 111,000. What about the lawful migration, Nigel Farage? The thing you're not talking about. The conversation we're not having. Why do we not discuss lawful migration? The answer, because lawful migration is necessary to keep the country running. Which is what many of these fucking goddamn right-wing nutcases want to talk about, but can't talk about. The illegal boat migration is a tiny tip of much of the argument that we're having, and the Tories and the Reform don't want a legal migration conversation because it would expose the tax system that they are trying to desperately protect.
I'm sorry, I need to scrap that tax system.
Yeah, that's the whole point. It's a tax problem that everyone's obfuscating for. Oh, look at the illegal migrants. Look at the illegal migrants. Not the lawful migrants. We need to prop up the system in cheap labour because we don't want to talk about how horrible our fucking tax system is. Your turn, my boy.
Rachel Reeves eyeing one thing to keep the plates spinning in her failed economic plan. Guess where that is? Britain doesn't need a chancellor who calls a flat line a victory. We need one who can stop the rot and get this nation moving again. Rachel Reeves is so out of her depth that she doesn't understand the scale of her own incompetence. The UK's public debt is at an all-time high. The last year, Reeves borrowed an eye-watering $152 billion.
I want to pause you there. The Tories have borrowed fuckloads more than that during their government.
With $105 billion of that being used to service existing debts. I wouldn't minded that $152 billion if it was actually all of it used as infrastructure. But no, 2/3 of that has been used to solve existing debts, apparently. We are borrowing more money simply to pay interest on the money we've already borrowed. It is the fiscal equivalent to remortgaging your house every year to pay off your credit card bill you ran up buying champagne you could not afford. And while the ship is sinking, Reeves is standing on deck clapping at the positive GDP growth figures of 0.3%.
The previous Conservative governments from 2010 up to when they left power borrowed over £500 billion. So I remind you, Britain, take this into context that Rachel Reeves is paying debts that the Conservatives gave us.
No, I think the more thing is that she's
paying debts the Conservatives with the Conservatives that that gave us.
But she's borrowing more
to pay the debts.
No, she isn't paying the debt. She's paying the interest of the debts.
But Chris, the interest of those debts are from the Conservatives borrowing.
Yeah, that's because both parties are a bunch of morons.
That's what I'm saying. You've got to put this into context. She's paying down debts that we've incurred from a Conservative government.
I wouldn't mind it if it's a case of fact she borrowed 150 million and she wiped out some of those debts, so it's only from one source.
Mm-hmm.
But she's just using the borrowing to pay off the interest.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Which means you're getting nowhere. It's as the people said, it's like remortgaging your house because you spent too much on champagne you couldn't afford.
Absolutely. But as of the financial year ending of March 2017, the deficit was at 52 billion, or 2.6 to GDP. In 2021, it was 303 billion was borrowed. These are all Conservative borrows that haven't been paid back. Rachel Reeves is paying the borrowing of the Conservative during the mess up of Conservative-run COVID. 303 billion borrowed because of COVID.
I think it's more the fact that she's borrowing more to pay off. It's just not working.
Absolutely. It's mad.
Snails would scoff at the pace. Britain is sputtering along while other economies surge ahead. Yet our Chancellor hails the limp performance as a strong start to the year. If this is her idea of a strength, one dreads to think what weakness looks like. Behind the hollow cheerleading lies of brutal truth, Reeve faces a 50 billion black hole in public finances. The wafer-thin fiscal headroom she inherited has already evaporated. To plug the gap, she is eyeing on one thing: raising taxes.
Absolutely. We need to fix the tax system. Remember, there are too many black holes, Britain. Too many companies operate with paying so little fucking tax because of the loopholes, because of the tax dodgings that go on that are lawful. We'll be very clear. This is all legal than doing it. We need to close these legal loopholes to generate the tax, to downpay our fucking debts, to lower our costs.
This literally basically speaks what you're saying. In fact, that somewhat underestimate matters because she'll take every tax grab she can get away with: inheritance tax hikes, capital gains tax rises, stealth taxes, sin taxes, all the usual tools of a desperate treasury that is run out of ideas. No, not run out of ideas, doesn't want to implement an idea which will solve everything. So the fact
fix the fucking tax system.
Because they don't want to do the fucking work.
Change the tax loopholes, close them for everyone. Banks, digital currencies, digital companies.
And yourselves, government. I'm sorry,
and
but you're not getting fucking out of it.
Private landowners. Two-tier tax system would solve the British problem.
And I could guarantee you 90%, over 90%.
And when that huge windfall comes over, Chris's response is, we'll pay bills for now, take a huge chunk of that, pay off debts, pay off debts, pay off debts. First 4 years, you'd watch Chancellor fucking Christopher chucking fucking money into killing off debts. Right, there's one debt gone. There goes the next debt. Then goes the next. That's what the fucker would do. Do that in the first 4 years, you'll watch all the fucking bills of Britain come down because inflation would drop.
And I'd set it in law that the bloody thing, the tax system cannot be changed after we're gone.
That's the whole point. That you need a reform of the taxation. And reform won't do that.
And I'll purposely write it into the fact that if you want to change the tax system, it has to be put to a public vote. And if you don't get more than 90%...
No, 75. You've got to make it more democracy.
75% agreeing, it does not happen.
Exactly. You have to build a system that will radically change the British taxing system.
And I'd actually do it 80. Fuck it, just to make sure it never happens.
You'd have to have a 2/3 majority. You can't make it 80% because there might be reasons in a couple of hundred years for that tax system to want to be reformed.
Yeah, but then you'd have the majority vote.
So the way I see it is the tax system has to be reformed. And this is what Rachel Reeves is suffering. And some of these debts need to be told we're not paying them. Like some of these private equitable debts that own to private banks, you just tell them we're not paying you.
Here's the thing. In the tall, higher taxes will only make things worse. Businesses are already being throttled by her national insurance hike on employers, spiraling energy costs and layers of regulated red tape. Households crushed by inflation and stagnant wages are bracing for yet another raid on their pockets. Reeves isn't taxing for growth, she's taxing the very life out of the economy. The numbers tell the story. Growth in April and May was negative, only bounced back in June due to a few isolated boosts in car sales, R&D and electrical manufacturing. Household spending is the real engine of our economy, barely growing at all, crawling at a 0.1% without a vibrant private sector and confident consumers. There is no sustainable.
There won't be a confident consumer until we reform the tax system. You have to wipe out these black holes, these gifts, these banks that don't pay fucking tax, these digital companies that pay 2 to 3%.
It's just ridiculous.
These companies that technically have 80% on the books but pay 10 or 12. You've got to stop this. And at the same time, you then need to reduce how many taxes we have in the UK. This is how you'll save the councils. This is how you'll fix the roads. You start pulling in all these multiple different tax forms, closing them down and turning it into a two-tier system. Me and Chris are fucking railing on this every podcast. And the reason we do is because we know that a radical thinking like that could solve many of our problems. And the huge windfall that you'd make, someone like Chris would just shovel it straight into our debts, wiping out our debts one after another, moving down the big debts all the way down.
Because the moment you got no debts, you then have that money to reinvest within yourself.
Exactly. Spend one parliament doing nothing but paying off Britain's debts.
And I could guarantee you most people turn around and agree because they're like, hang on, so we're only paying that one tax that's come straight out of our wages. There's no other tax.
No road council tax, no VAT tax.
Yeah.
One tax if you're under one bracket, one tax if you're in another bracket.
Just one payment of tax. Everyone pay it because they're like, hang on.
Most of the companies around the UK do not pay a vast amount of tax. Everybody has a fucking loophole. It's lawful. And I stress that it's lawful, but it is a fucking loophole. And that is where we have a moral problem.
And to the ones that say, oh, but all the businesses will leave, that will give the chance for local businesses to come in and take over.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the problem I've got with this idea of, oh, those businesses will leave, other companies will come. And they what these Tories and many of these political pundits say is our friends' business, our corporate allies, the men who give us our backhanders, their businesses will leave. That's an important fact. I don't give a fuck.
I'd rather have a country sustained by local business than foreign ones.
Absolutely.
Because that means you're completely
But
self-sustaining.
foreign companies will come. They're just not the friends of the Conservatives, friends of the Labour.
It'd be different ones that are coming, be like, hang on, so I only paid the one bill on tax and that'll be it. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. I don't have to worry about anything else.
That's exactly how you should run a business.
I could develop my products and make sure they're decent, make sure the employees get fair wages.
You fix the system by fixing the tax. Me and Chris have been ramming about this for fucking nearly a year now.
Did your next point?
Yeah. Let me get over to my next point. Schools, care homes and sports clubs sold off to pay spiralling council debt.
No.
Yeah. Communities across the UK are paying for spiralling levels of council borrowing with a fire sale of public-owned facilities, BBC study has found. Schools, care homes, boxing gyms, and even the Olympic legacy equestrian centres are among hundreds of buildings being sold as struggling councils seek to reduce the debit piles of 122 billion across all of Britain's councils. Chief Executive of Local Government Information Units, LGIU, Dr. Jonathan Carr-West, said public value would continue to be eroded until the government came up with a long-term solution to council debt. The answer is dissolve the council tax system and start putting money from the pot in the centre outwards by forcing companies to pay their fucking way. The government said it was aware the funding system for councils was broken and was pushing ahead with reforms to address the problem. No, they're not. They don't want to affect this. Councils across the UK can borrow money from banks or from governments to fund improvements in their area, from building new schools to maintaining roads and providing sheltered housing. They can also borrow to make investments intended to generate income. Since 2010, they have brought shopping centres, office parks and solar farms, as well as funding large housing developments with borrowed funds. Most of these were done through the arms of the Treasury, known as the Public Works Loan Board. And until 2022, interest rates on the borrowing remained relatively low. Last year, the Public Accounts Committee warned debit levels had become unsustainable despite curbs placed on borrowing for purely commercial aims in 2021. But the BBC's shared data unit found those combined debts grew by 7% last year. Their combined 122 billion of debt is now equivalent to £170,000 per UK resident. Usually, authorities are not allowed to sell off assets in order to fund day-to-day services such as bin collections or social care. But increasing numbers of councils in financial trouble are now being given powers to do so by the government. Known as capitalisation directives, they are also councils to take out short-term loans to pay for day-to-day services, but add millions to the debt piles in procedures. This year, 30 councils were given those powers. Last year, it was 19. Councils sold 2.9 billion of public assets over the past 2 years, often than social housing sold through the right to buy scheme. Those with the highest debits were twice as likely to have been among the highest sellers. For Dr. Carl West, the system is unsustainable. As one of the local government's finance officers said to me, it is essentially payday loans for local governments, he said. We're now seeing the selling off of assets, and once they're gone, they're gone. So what was public value is now passing to private hands, and the work that won't come back. Yes, they will. You just nationalise the councils and tell these private owners, fuck you. I'm tired of this type of gerrymandering taxing system that has been going on here in the UK, where one after another of these problems are because the British political fucking elite will not get a handle on the tax system. The corporate hand has had its hand in the fucking British trough for far too long. I need an iron bastard like this to cut the fucking bastard's hand off.
Cut it off or fucking burn it off.
It has to be done. Take a flamethrower to it. The corporate man has been buying and selling British assets for his giggles ever since the fucking Thatcher days. And someone needs to brutally lop off the corporate hand that is in the British tax well. This motherfucker will do that. And this motherfucker will get him there. I'm telling you this now.
I'll cut it off and then
build it back.
Stuff it, frame it. You want it back? I want money.
Do you know what I'm saying? Because that's the reality we live in. Britain is being looted by corporate interests. This is an example of looted by corporate interests. And the fucking Labour and Conservative, as well as that nutcase reform, all support this system. Liberal Democrats don't. And I need to stress this, Britain. We are going down a fucking jackrabbit hole where people are going to start rioting because national assets are being sold off at a record pace by corporate interests.
This is the one thing they're selling schools. Where are the kids going to go to actually learn and educate themselves on how to actually do stuff within the world?
Not all council-owned buildings are directly used by public in the way. For example, leisure centres are often authorised, have legacy buildings that over time come to be leased, such as shops, pubs and factories. But Dr. Cartwell said those assets still represent a public loss when sold, as they can be vital for when councils need to regenerate town centres. And the cheaper rents and longer leases that local authorities can offer stimulate local economies. Everything comes down to finance. In Croydon, South London, the council ploughed money into large housing complexes, shopping centres and a hotel, among hosts of other investments. When the COVID pandemic hit, it lost millions and could not repay its debts. Its 210 million fire sale of public properties over the last 4 years would only cover about 15% of its current 1.5 billion debt, which continues to grow last year. The authority-elected mayor, Jason Parent, told BBC the council spends 70 million a year in debt repayments alone. You need a reformation of the entire fucking tax system. Lock, stock, and barrel. From the fucking Orkneys all the way down to fucking Isle of Man, everything in between, the tax system has to be reformed. And every London cunt who objects, chuck that fucker in prison. I'm tired of these corporate bastards looting my country. And
every single one that objects, I'll turn and go, right, so who's got their hand in your back pocket? What do you mean? Let's fish it out. Who you keep getting backhanders from?
Absolutely. And we need to start declaring where our politicians are getting their campaign money. There is a lack of critical scrutiny here in the UK. A lack of financial scrutiny here in the UK. And we need to be unafraid to start asking these fucking questions. The club, or New Allington's Leisure and Community Centre, home the estate's boxing club, closed in February. The club had 300 members and worked with men and young youths who would otherwise be involved in crime, according to the head coach, Bill Graham. A group of volunteers raised $25,000 to keep going in the nearby school. Its future still remains uncertain. We help reduce crime. We help children not go into grabbing knives. We help the entire community stand up. And that's a fucking genuinely good reason. And this makes me fucking mad that we are allowing this system to continually erode our country. In the end, everything comes down to finances, they said. We need to sell our assets because of the situation we are in. You're in that situation because previous governments have allowed you to get into it. Nobody has paid attention to the real fucking demons of this island. And it makes me fucking mad. Anyway, we're going to head back over to Chris here before we wrap up for today.
Bank of England governor says UK faces acute challenge from sick and ageing workers. There we go. There it is. Weak economic growth and a drop in workforce numbers are posing an acute challenge to Britain, Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey has said. As aging
Relative? Relative?
No. Far worse I'd be in that banking system. An aging workforce coupled with a rise in the number of people defined as long-term sick means UK's productivity is suffering. He has told a gathering of fiscal policymakers in Jackson Hole Wyoming, according to official data, the percentage of 16 to 64-year-olds who are economically active in Britain has dropped since the COVID pandemic, making the country an outlier among advanced economies. Mr. Bailey added that it is very concerning development that mental health has become the most common reason for inactivity. There were caveats to this data, he said, such as low response rates and higher chance that economically inactive participants would take part. Regardless of this, Mr. Bailey said this is a pretty sad story for the UK because we are well at the bottom of the league table. Speaking over the weekend, the policymaker also suggested that increase in sickness to a large decline in young people in the workforce may be least particularly connected.
I think that has a lot to play in the disconnection of society and communities that has really affected the UK over the last 2 to 3 decades. Yeah. Companionship is massively important, and the younger generation are so digitally connected. I mean, I verbally abuse this arsehole almost on a daily basis, whether we are together or not. But I think you having a connections with your people, with the people that you generate interest with, the people you enjoy company of, is very, very important. And because Gen Zers, young millennials, spend too much time on social media, they miss the physical and emotional connection that happens. And this is a key factor that we need to turn off social media platforms, I think, for an hour a day.
Recent government research has found that nearly 1 in 4 people out of work due to ill health are under 35, with mental health being number one of the most common issues.
Absolutely. And as I said, it's because of social media. You could probably build a correlation between that very study and social media. And there should be a cutoff point, like an hour or even 4 hours a day that the internet should be turned off for all social media platforms. For 4 hours of the day, it should be disconnected, and it should allow adults and teenagers to spend more time interacting with their peers and their people, physically talking, communicating in a socially acceptable manner.
Raising productivity growth needs to be a priority for Britain, Mr. Bailey said, adding ageing is not going to turn around in the foreseeable future. Forecasts now show that 40% of the UK population will be older than 64 by 2040. Damn. Labour has said it wants to boost the labour force participation and economic growth, unveiling several policies with this aim since coming into power in July 2024. The Department of Work and Pensions received $45 million to deliver a youth guarantee, a project in its early stages which aims to ensure all young people are either in work, education or training. Welfare reforms have also formed a central part of the government's plans to boost workforce participation. However, ministers were forced to water down cuts to disability benefits in July, following widespread criticism, including from many of their own MPs.
The problem being is we need to support these people whilst they're in this vulnerable state and fix the vulnerable state. You can't do that in this tax system because you're constantly paying back debts that you would normally use that money to assist these people to get over their mental illnesses to get them back in the fucking labour force.
Well, that's just disgusting.
Yeah.
But then this also then falls in, I think, quite nicely with why it no longer pays to earn 100k.
Jesus wept.
And this is from the Telegraph.
It's right wing, but intelligent right wing.
Earning over 100,000 used to be the hallmark of success, not so much anymore. These days, workers on six-figure salaries can be left thousands of pounds worse off thanks to our warped tax system. It has been said
What have I been
in
saying?
the public forum. There we go. The earnings between 100,000 and 125,000 face the highest effective tax rates in the country. This is because they lose 12,500 personal allowance at a rate of £1 for every £2 earned. Fuck!
Yeah.
That's 50%.
And Chris, that's because, and that's our upper middle class. That's our upper middle class that's getting fucking hammered there, because corporations, big corporations, don't pay their fair share.
Until it disappears entirely. Although on paper they pay 40% tax, the effective tax rate is actually 60%, meaning they only keep 400 of every £1,000. Sorry, that's just wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree. And again, I'm not here to hammer the 100 grand workers. You work fucking hard.
Yeah, no, hang on. And then on top of this, parents can be better off turning down a pay rise because they lose their valuable childcare subsides.
Absolutely.
Once they step over the £100,000 mark. This year, almost 725,000 workers will fall into the 60% tax trap, according to the new figures from HMRC and Customs, up from around 300,000 in 2018. Sean McCann, an insurer of NFH Mutual, who obtained the data through a Freedom of Information request, said earning 100,000 used to be aspirational, but now it is a sting in the tail.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's because, and I keep fucking stressing about this, and I'm going to be banging my fucking head on a wall until I get it through to the British public. It is live in a 110,000 page tax system.
It's ridiculous.
That is so convolutedly complex, you must hire accountants whose job it is to find the cheapest method for your tax money.
He continued, when he added national insurance of 2%, this means that only £38 of every £100 earned between these amounts ends up in the employee's pocket. Think about that. You break £100,000, you're like, yes, I've made it into the higher tax bracket. Fuck, I got less money.
Hell of a lot less money.
And it's not okay. That's just ridiculous.
The burden is being pushed on our upper middle class, which is wrong. And
that says to me, you need
from the multi-billion-pound companies that are paying pennies to the fucking pound.
The way to work that is literally you're going to go, right, I'm going to go up to 95,000. It's the highest salary I could turn around and do, because then you're still in that lower tax bracket and you keep most of your money. And you still get child support.
Yeah. It's mad. It's absolutely fucking mad. That is a standard thing in the UK.
That is disgusting.
Yeah,
I would understand it. I thought it was a case of the fact when you went into the millions, you started getting taxed stupidly.
No, because your tax starts going down rapidly once you reach millions.
What the fuck?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because you can afford accounting agencies at that point.
Yeah, you need to rent an account. Please sort this out so I actually keep most of my money.
Yeah.
Do you see £100,000 person hiring an accountant?
That would be expensive for them.
I was going to say, that's going to take a chunk.
It's going to take more than a chunk.
That is disgusting. You break into 100,000, you're fucked. That is just fucking disgusting. I say once he's found out his little point he's doing, I'm going to do a very quick thing on the TV license to end us up with. And
it can generally cost between 12 to 14 grand a year for an accounting company to hide your money. And if you're only making 100 grand, that's a good chunk.
That's a tenth of your money or more.
Yeah. To hide your money.
Yeah. That's
lawfully hide your money. I report lawfully.
If that isn't a case of the tax system needs to be fucking kicked to the curb and a new one bill, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And thing it is BBC looking at overhaul of a license as 300,000 more households stop paying the TV license.
I don't use a TV license.
Yeah.
I stream or I watch YouTube or such like. I haven't owned a TV in a decade.
Yeah. Both sides have suggested changes to the license fee. However, the BBC senior executives have set red lines around any move to subscription or ad-based service as they used by their streaming competitors. The pace of change within the media world is so great that Samir Shah, the BBC chair, said in the report it was a moment of real jeopardy for the sector. The fight is on, and it is vital we now think carefully about the kind of media environment we want for the UK, he said, adding he was searching for the best future funding model for the BBC. All right, that is a very key statement. Future funding model for the BBC. Yeah, because there'd be another speculation point at the end, which I've been hearing. I need to do a bit more research on. I've already set out some views on this, and the board will be saying more over the coming months, he said. But all of us are clear that we need to make sure we protect the BBC as a universal service and help it not just to survive, but to thrive for a generation and more.
I fundamentally don't believe the TV licensing system should even exist.
Nowhere else in the world pays for a TV license. License fee income increased slightly year on year, totaling 3.8 billion. And if you're getting 3.8 billion, how the fuck are you not making decent shows?
Mm.
In 2024-25, however, the small rise was down to the 6.7% inflation increase in the fee to £169.50 a year. Bear in mind, it's going up again. It's going up again. I've already looked it up and it's going up again. The current collection method remains fair, effective, and a good value for money, the reporter says.
I don't agree.
I don't agree.
It's just fundamentally the BBC's financial system needs to be scrapped, and it needs to be set a budget by the government.
I'm going to say this one thing to the BBC. If the rumours are even remotely true to what I've seen online, the fact that you're going to turn around and the amount of your TV licence fee is going to come compulsory and it's going to depend on how big of a household you live in, you're going to end your fucking company faster than you say fucking hello. Because
people will start erasing their TV licenses. You will find people saying that we stream, and you'll get that will be the death knell of the BBC.
People will literally just turn around, rip their fucking aerial out the wall, and go, "We stream, thank you."
Yeah, that'll be it. It'll be the death of the BBC.
You will kill yourself straight off if you even contemplate that idea. You're a fucking moron.
Beyond a moron.
You're a moron, and you're just backing up all the allegations that you've been accused of, that you're money-grabbing fucking assholes. Plus the other accusations of perverts and everything else.
Oh my God. I can't stand the BBC.
I'm sorry, but I don't know how...
It's a walking sex offenders fucking club.
I don't know how the fuck the BBC turned around and managed to get it legalised that you need a fucking TV licence, because it's fucking stupid. Why the fuck do you need one? The only way you're going to sustain yourself in this current world is by going down the Netflix and everyone else's route. People, if they want your service, they pay for it.
Yeah, and you will need to restructure to do it. I think that concludes us, because I'm going to leave my last point for the next session. Because we have run well over an hour at this point.
Hour 13.
Hour 13, yeah, that's doing rather well.
Yeah.
I think...
I'm going to say, and I'll leave my food cost increase.
Yeah, no, we've got a couple of pieces. We ran over today because obviously I wanted a real talk about our commentations, people who watch our videos and give comments, because I think it's necessary for us to talk back towards the community, even when they don't necessarily agree or disagree. But as always, I'm Sean, John or Yaka.
I'm Chris. Hope you have a smashing day.
And this is, as always, your voice, your nation, the blue collar workers. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Have a lovely day.